Welcome everyone to this session. We are super excited to talk about networking. I am Vaibhav Gupta. I'm a product manager at Airmeet, and with me I have Mike, who is a podcaster and award-winning blogger, speaker, author, head of strategic partnerships at Agora Pulse. He hosted Agora Pulse Agency Summit on Airmeet, which had over 3,000 participants, 50 speakers, 50 brand partners, and about 36 breakout sessions. So we are today going to hear from the expert. And let me just play a quick video where Mike had something to say about Airmeet experience. Let's start with that.
I've been going to live in-person events for 5 or 6 years. And I know from experience that what our target audience gets the most out of, what they benefit the most out of, isn't the content in the sessions. It's just not. It's the conversations that happen outside those sessions, in the hallways, sitting down at meals, sitting down in table talks, interviews that happen impromptu, that sort of thing, being able to meet and talk to speakers, being able to ask questions. It's those kinds of activities that people actually have what we call a magical moment. Something will happen. A relationship will form, a question will get answered. We wanted to create more magical moments. We wanted to create more opportunities for people to come away from our events feeling like, wow, that was amazing, right? Maybe it's because they met somebody, it had nothing to do with the speakers that I lined up, but still, if they meet somebody, whether it's a client or a friend or a colleague that creates this long-term relationship, they're always going to remember that it was at Agency Summit by Agora Pulse that happened. That was what we wanted to create. And I really enjoyed the fact that we could offer our attendees a lounge, and they could go into the lounge and they could jump into speed networking and meet some folks, and they could jump into a table, either just an open table or one devoted to a particular topic, and have some conversations.
All right. So today, let's talk about in this session the best practices for inserting and programming networking in your virtual events, and how Airmeet features can facilitate your networking activities. And then, as a third thing, we'll also talk about some things that maybe today you're not able to do on Airmeet, and we'll take that as a feedback and come with better features next time. So let me start with the first question for Mike. I'm just posting the question and let me show this question on stage. Meanwhile, all of you, please feel free to post your questions on the Q&A tab, and any ideas also. You can post ideas on Q&A, and let's get upvotes on your ideas, and we'll bring the best ideas on stage, right? Let's do this. First question. Mike, with virtual events, some of the things that have been difficult for a lot of organizers is figuring out how to replicate the networking element of the in-person events. How do you do that in virtual events, right? So what were your challenges and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so first of all, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure. Airmeet's one of my favorite platforms, so I love getting to meet all of you guys behind the scenes at Airmeet, the community. And so definitely if you've got questions that we're not touching on, throw them in the chat. We're watching, we'll pay attention. I wanted to share how I got started in virtual events because this really speaks to this particular question. The first real, truly virtual event that I ran was a few years ago, 2018. And it was a series of live interviews and presentations where I tapped specific ambassadors of Agora Pulse. Agora Pulse is a social media management tool. So I was tapping social media influencers, people who teach social media on social media, very meta. And at the time, we were using a different platform, and it was really just a series of webinars. That's really what it was. They were disconnected. You couldn't even register for all of them. I had 16 of them, and you had to register for each individual one if you wanted to attend all 16. They were spread out over, I think, 3 weeks at the time, and there was no networking at all. You just showed up. You could leave comments. I think I could view comments, but you really weren't meeting anybody else. It was just you passively listening to whatever speaker I'd picked and hopefully learning something and not really engaging with the other attendees. So Fast forward over the next few years, creating that kind of event experience became a big part of my role at Agorapulse. But I stopped using that kind of platform. It was just a series of standalone webinars. And I started exploring what else was out there. I come from a live video background. I've been doing live video for, gosh, 10 years now, starting with Google Plus Hangouts on Air. And so I know the importance of having interaction with the audience. I know, for instance, if I'm speaking and I see Shade is in the comments and she's asking questions, and I say, "Hey, Shade, that's a great question. Let me answer that for you." She's going to feel, not to be presumptuous, but she's going to feel a little special for being called out, right? I'm almost creating that personal interaction between her and I, but I can only do that if I'm the speaker. So to have a successful virtual event, you need to create other kinds of opportunities where the individual can connect with and talk to another individual more than just a quick chat or a profile follow. So that's why I started to build into the events that I was creating. I was looking for ways to do table talks. I was looking for ways to do those kind of hallway meetings that I talked about in that video. Because, like I said, I come from not only a live video background, but I've been to many, many real life in person conferences. And I know from personal experience, the things that I remember about those conferences aren't the session that I went to, right? Aren't, some tip that I heard about Instagram hashtag usage. That's not what I remember about Social Media Marketing World 2016. What I remember is meeting Emmerich Ernaud, who was the CEO of Agorapulse, who eventually became my boss. He didn't hire me that day. It was 2 years later, right? But that was the kind of magical moment that happened for me in 2016. And fast forward 2 years, I became an employee of that particular company. And there's all kinds of other magical moments that have happened for me personally that I associate in my mind with a specific event, which means I'm associating that positive experience with the brand that put on the event. So that's what's changed for me, and that's what's changed in the industry, because platforms like Airmeet facilitate and allow those kinds of networking opportunities to take place.
Right, right. Thanks, Mike, for sharing this amazing story. Back from like more than 5 years, we have come a long way in this events, right? So you mentioned how people remember the hallway conversations and people they met during the breaks. How do you replicate that in a virtual event, right? What kind of agenda would you set? Let me just push, push, pull this question on the stage.
Hmm.
So what do you consider a healthy mix of content sessions versus networking sessions? And let me also add breaks, right? Should networking sessions and breaks be the same thing or two different things?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last question first. Networking breaks are not the same thing anymore. They're totally different. This is something we were talking about yesterday, before this session. If I'm at a real in-life event, like Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, I can come out of a session, I can go into the networking plaza, I can grab a coffee, and I'm surrounded by hundreds of other people. If I go downstairs right now and I grab a coffee, there's nobody else here. I'm alone in the house. So there's no networking that's going to go happen when I refill this mug. But when I'm in a real life event, that networking can and often does happen in that kind of environment. So you have to acknowledge that fact. There are differences today that we cannot get around between real and virtual events, and that's one of them. If I need an actual break, I'm not going to see anybody on my break. If I need to go to the bathroom, get a drink, walk the dog, step outside, get some air, those kinds of things. So breaks are important. In fact, I do encourage event organizers to schedule pure breaks and even encourage attendees, get up, go outside, get a breath of fresh air, take 10 minutes and step away from your computer so we don't have so much of that blue light eye fatigue going on throughout the day. That's different from networking, because networking has to be in this seat. I have to be looking at you. I have to be typing or talking, the camera on, the mic on. All those things have to be happening for me to successfully network in a virtual event, which means, to go to the first part of the question, you absolutely must schedule networking time throughout the day. So what I've been doing recently, because platforms like you have speed networking, which I adore, I schedule that first. most of the people attending each of your, are having virtual events, or you're going to have virtual events next year. Most of the people attending your events don't know each other.
Yeah.
The speakers might be familiar with each other. Some people are going to know you, right? But there's 58 people in this session today. I'm imagining most of you don't know each other in this session. If I wanted you to know each other, if I wanted you to get to know each other, I'd have started with a speed networking where I've got 30 minutes total blocked off. That's the only thing going on at that moment in the network, in the event day. And I've set it up so that like every 5 minutes, you're bouncing to the next person. I may give you some specific questions to prompt, say, hey, where are you from? What do you do? Why are you here? What are you looking forward to the most? What speaker are you hoping to learn from? Just to get the ball rolling. And then you've got 5 minutes to get to know one other person. And then you'll go to the next person, the next person. And if it's successful, you'll know 5 or 6 people now
Yeah.
before you've even gone into a session. So when you come into this session and you see Ashani talking and Winnie's here and Shade's here, right? These are people that, wow, I just talked to you a moment ago, right? I know
Right.
you're here from Ontario or Hungary or wherever it is that you're here from. I know that you're, doing this, that, and the next thing, and why you're here. And our brains are going to associate that familiarity, pay a little more attention to when that person that we talk to asks a question or makes a comment, that sort of thing. So that helps to build rapport, that helps to build that networking that can potentially happen. Then you create throughout the day additional time slots for things like table talks and the lounge and so on. And if you've already met some people, and maybe you attended a keynote or some other breakout sessions, maybe there was even some breakout capability within the session, right, where we break out into different tables right after a short presentation, you're going to see those same people and you're going to meet new people. So then let's say it's middle of the day and I've got a time set aside for table talks, and we go into the lounge and we see the tables, and I, as an attendee, I'm looking around, I see some topics that I'm interested in, and I see some people I already met. I see some people I know, maybe just a little bit. I mean, maybe I've known them for a total of 90 minutes, but that's better than total strangers. So then I sit
Mhm.
down at that table and I'm just an inch more comfortable than I was a couple of hours ago. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's just a little bit of an icebreaker, if you will, to allow me as a self-professed introvert to be a little more comfortable sitting down at a table of really total strangers and maybe sharing my opinion, maybe answering a question. Because one of the fun things that'll happen at events as a result of creating these opportunities is that some people will ask questions and other people will answer those questions. It's just basic conversation, right?
Right.
But you don't know going into it what's going to happen. You don't know going into it what questions you're going to have, what questions other people are going to have. And as a result, when those things happen, you may meet somebody that you need or that needs you, right? You may sit down at a table and someone starts sharing their background, and maybe they've just opened a business that's very similar to yours, and maybe they're hitting a wall of challenges and
Right.
issues and questions, and you're a few years further along in that similar journey, and you can be like, you know what, I had that same problem a couple years ago and I did these 3 things. Maybe you're not even an
Yeah.
expert, right? But you've shared a little bit more about yourself in a table with some other people around you. And that creates opportunities for them to look at you as first an expert in some way. You've got some experience that you're willing to share,
Yeah.
but it also allows other people to see you in a very human way, see you in a helpful way, and that helps build rapport, that helps build trust. And we just don't know what's going to happen after that. That might be the last time you talk to those people. That might be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as they say in Casablanca, where
Yeah.
you might go on to talk to that person every day for years. Some of my best friends today are people I've met at conferences and events.
Oh, wow.
The initial meeting took place in a session, in a table
Yeah.
talk, in the hallway. Somebody introduced me. There's a brilliant speaker in the marketing industry. His name is Marcus Sheridan. He wrote the book You Asked, They Ask, You Answer. He's just a genius when it comes to content marketing. He's a keynote speaker and so on. And I was attending his session and so on. And after the session, standing out in the hallway with him and somebody else, and that somebody else introduced me to him. Hey, this is Mike Alton, Marcus. You need to meet Mike. It was an amazing moment, and now we're friends. It's just, those kinds of things can happen virtually as well as in real life, but it's incumbent on the event organizer to create that space.
Create that space. So create that space, guys. Create that space early on in your event. That will help attendees create a bond amongst themselves, and they'll be glued to the event. And maybe the next big startup idea might come out of, or the best friendships might come out of your event next time, right? So let's quickly just do a poll. Let's see what people think about this. So do you see this poll? Did you build networking time into your event? Let's get the answers coming in. Right. So okay. So
I love
most
how
of
there's
us.
real-time results. I can see the charts moving. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, great. So most of us are already doing it. Come on. So let's keep doing this. This is, I think, the most obvious trick out of this sleeve today. Let's now just quickly. This is one of the questions from the attendees. So you know how the registration forms for the events have this question that you have for the speaker, and you always post that question and think about whether my speaker is answer my question. So here it is. This is one of the questions from the attendees. What are your best networking tips and tricks to keep your communities buzzing and build anticipation between the Airmeet events? What are your best practices to make the Airmeet lounge and the booths hot commodity, Mike?
So, one of the easy things you guys can do before your next event, if you've got time, I mean, and this could be as little as a week in advance of your next event, is to create a community outside of the event. Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, Discord server, Slack channel, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter the platform, but build a platform and community for your attendees. And then as people are signing up, invite them into the community. Now, this is going to do two things. The long-term view is now we've got a community around our event that we can use after the event for the next event and for the next event and the next event and so on. So we did this at Agorapulse. We built Social Pulse community in March of last year, just when the pandemic was starting, March of 2020. And we started using it for this partial purpose, right? To build community for future events and live videos and summits and webinars and things that we were doing. But the real purpose, the initial purpose, the short-term purpose is to create a space for your attendees to meet other attendees before the event. You got 100 people coming to your event next week, and most of them are in a Facebook group. They're going to see each other. They're going to see your posts. They're going to see each other's posts. Somebody asks a question. Hey, how do I get into the event? Boom, 16 people answer. Now they've all met all those people. Yeah, they're not in-depth conversations, but again, that repetition, that name recognition that's going to happen as a result of them seeing my name in a Facebook group, when they see my name sitting at a networking table inside of Airmeet on the day of your actual event, that's going to help their brain and elicit a little more oxytocin, a little more of that happy brain chemical that says, oh, I know that person. I'm a little less uncomfortable jumping into that table and talking to them. So that's the first thing you can do. Very basic, very easy. And you don't have to do a whole lot inside of that community. Invite them in the community, post an update now and then. That's like bare minimum, and that's super easy, very low effort. If you want to take it to the next level, have some of your key speakers do live interviews inside the community. This is where it's helpful to choose Facebook because all that feature and functionality is already built in. I can use StreamYard or Ecamm, and I can live stream an interview, very much like what we're doing right now, with a speaker into the Facebook group. Hey, we've got Jay Bear, who's going to keynote our live event next month. But for you guys, we're going to give you a special treat. We're going to have him for 15 minutes live in the community to do a quick Q&A about what he's going to talk about and give you a chance to answer, ask some of your questions. And maybe you'll ask a question that he'll get to, but maybe we won't get to your question and we'll bring it up during the live event in a month. So show up. And again, by showing up for the speaker, not only are they getting excited about your event and they're getting excited about the speaker, they're getting to know Jay and they see his plaid suit and all the wonderful things that Jay Bear represents. They meet each other while they're there in the conversation, in the chat, in the discussion. They see, oh, Eric is asking really smart questions. I might want to connect with Eric. I might want to follow him or connect with him on Facebook. Or at least, if I see Eric sitting at a table in the networking lounge, I'm going to sit at Eric's table because I know he's going to ask something super smart that I'm going to learn from, right? Because some people, again, they don't want to ask the questions. They're afraid of looking dumb. Many of us have that kind of a similar feel. So we kind of let other people ask our questions for us, and that's fine. So that's one of the big things that I would do is have that kind of community up front to help build buzz. I don't know. Was there anything else, any other parts to the question? Or
No, I think you brought that very interesting point that you stream that live onto your Facebook group as well. And I've seen a lot of podcasters and speakers, influencers repurposing this content and sharing that as a podcast later on. Even like Eric had a question like like just thoughts around hosting short podcast interview sessions and with speakers to hype their sessions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just remembered the other part of that question was how do we make the lounge and booths hot commodities?
Yeah.
You can certainly hype them up in advance. In fact, I would strongly recommend that and we might talk about this more later, but making sure that your attendees know there's a lounge, they know there's booths, and they're told how to use and access those things. So like for Agency Summit, that was the big event that I put on with Airmeet in Q2 last year. We'll do it again in Q2 next year, specifically for marketing agencies. So many of you in the audience, it's probably not for you, but what we loved about the Airmeet platform was that we were able to totally customize the venue. So when people came into our event for the first time, and our company is based out of Paris, which is fun. So I had my team create a venue graphic with windows, and through the windows, it was as though you were looking at the Eiffel Tower and the beautiful Parisian landscape. And we had, a TV in the graphic. So I was able to put a video on the TV, and this was a welcoming video for all the attendees that played automatically. And it showed them and told them, here's the lounge. Here's where you go to meet people. Here's where the sessions are. Here's where the exhibitors are, where you can find out more in a very low pressure, no sales environment about all kinds of tools that can help you. So that helped my partners, right, who were showing up hoping to meet new people. So we gave them that. We walked them through everything. And I had our head of customer success, Christelle, with her beautiful Parisian accent, do a voiceover of the video, right? So again, and it was French music. So I really leaned in hard to creating an experience, even in that particular little detail, right? It was part of the experience. So people walking in, they know they're sitting in their office at home and they don't want to be there. They would much rather be in Paris. But if I can do a little bit more to ease that comfort, right? To make them focused. I love that you mentioned podcasts. I don't know if you said it was Eric or somebody else, but one of the challenges with creating podcast content is differentiating between passive and active listeners. So if I open up Apple Podcasts on my phone, I can choose any podcast I want. I can turn it on and it's going to start playing. Do I have to pay attention to it? Yeah. It can be playing in my ear, and I can be typing up an email or looking at my TV or eating a snack or doing all these other things, and it's just playing in the background, and I may or may not be paying attention to it. And as an event organizer, I know we're kind of getting off a little bit, but I'll just finish this point. As an event organizer, we have to realize that we're competing with everything else that's going around each attendee every moment of every day. My TV is on right now. It's playing just a background image, but my TV is technically on right now. It could be on programming. I could be streaming Netflix or CNN or something and watching that instead of watching the live event. My phone's got notifications going off. My team is slacking me. I could be working on a project that's due tomorrow and I don't want to put it off until tonight. So I'm thinking, oh, I can multitask, right? 5 minutes, session. It's okay. So I'm just going to work on this document. We don't want that as event organizers. We want to capture
Yeah.
their attention.
Right.
So bear that in mind when you are building your schedule, of course, but also when you're creating the environment. And the environment includes the venue graphics and everything, but also everything that's happening at every moment. Make sure it's structured, make sure it's planned so that you are making sure that your attendees are as engaged as possible.
Great, great answer, Mike. Thank you so much. We are running a little short on time. I do want to take questions from the audience, and I see this as a perfect segue to just very smartly promote the Airmeet features as well. So,
Hmm.
Amanda here is asking that one of the biggest issues that they have faced as a host is that there are not many incentives to like make people join the speed networking session, right? People join only if they're interested. And the funny thing is, the answer to this question lies in another question posted by Elizabeth. I'm thinking of using gamification for the first 15 minutes in our networking lounge before attendees enter our session. Are there any best practices you recommend, Mike?
Yeah, so I love these questions. And again, this is where it helps to have attended events in the past, because if you're paying attention, you will learn what's working and what's not working, and you will take from that. And it doesn't matter if they're real life or virtual. And here's an example. I've attended real life events in the past where they use networking bingo as a technique to gamify networking with other people. So here's how that works. You walk into the networking venue. In this case, in real life, it was the USS Midway, an aircraft carrier in San Diego. You walk in and they hand you a card, and on the card are boxes, bingo boxes. If you're familiar with that game, like in regular bingo, you've got letters and numbers, and people call out, B28, and then you do that. Well, on a networking bingo card, you have boxes like runs a podcast,
Right.
works from home, runs Facebook ads. And obviously you come up with boxes and topics and categories that make sense for your target
Yeah.
audience. And you create that box and you tell people, hey, walk around, ask people, introduce yourself, and have them sign their name on these boxes. And at the end of the night, the people that complete their cards, they'll be entered to win prizes. Okay.
Wow.
And
Nice.
you won't have 100% participation, and that is okay. But this will move some people out of their comfort zone. And the people who love to do this kind of stuff, they'll go all in. I mean, there are those kinds of people, right?
Right.
Those extroverts. Oh, yeah, give me 5 cards. I'm going to fill them all in. You'll have those. But there'll be people like myself who are a little more introverted that might be a little more inclined to go talk to total strangers. If I've got a
Yeah.
card that provides me the in for the conversation.
Right.
So, how did I do this on a virtual stage? I created a PDF event guidebook that I emailed to every attendee, and I made it available to every attendee prior to the event. I've been doing this for a couple years now, and I based it on the real life books that I was getting at these conferences that I was attending. It had information about every speaker, every session, maps of how to get around, and information, of course, about the venue and the brand that was putting it on. In this case, it was Social Media Examiner, and those kinds of networking things. I even went so far as, because I use Google Sheets for these. Here's a little bit of a technical
Yeah.
tip for everybody. I use Google Sheets to create it, because you can go into Google Sheets and you can adjust it to be a 8.5 by 11 standard format, and you can save it as a PDF, and you can create clickable spaces. So you could create a link to the Airmeet session, a link to the specific parts of the session. So you can actually create a virtual map. And I put in there a networking bingo card. And I said, hey, show up at the speed networking and see if the people you meet check off any of these boxes. And at the end of the night, people who complete their speed networking cards, and we have the Facebook community. So I said, hey, just screenshot it and comment on this particular post in the Facebook community, so I know that you did it. And the people that did it, they were entered to win things like a free year of Agorapulse, which is worth $2,000, or an iPad, or something else of real tangible value. and it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
People are more inclined. You don't know how many more people, but you know that people are going into speed networking, and you know some people are more inclined because they do it.
This is uh, such an awesome idea. So let me float this Airmeet community. Let's do this. Why don't you use leaderboard and speed networking sessions in your next events? Do the bingo thing. If bingo is really, really successful in your next events, we'll build bingo into the leaderboard. How about that?
There you go.
Right? Okay. I don't know how much time do we have. Ishani, can we continue and take one more question?
But yeah, that gamification angle is super important. I'll say, we did the same thing with tweets because we want people, again, we're a
Yeah.
social media company. We want people sharing to social, sharing to Twitter specifically about
Yeah.
our event. So we monitor it. We use a tool called Metricool to monitor hashtags, right? How many posts has, Eric or Kabir shared
Yeah.
with our hashtag, which tweets got the most engagement. And we would do a leaderboard, and I would post in the Facebook group every couple of hours, hey, Shade's winning. She's got 10 tweets. Everybody else has got 5 or
Yeah.
less. If
It's
you want to
it's
catch her, start tweeting out those sessions. It
it's
works every time.
it is definitely our Airmeet data has shown the leaderboard events with leaderboards have higher engagement. Attendees just go crazy. Okay, most of the questions that I see in the Q&A are around how to get people to tables, how to get people to network more and more. I think bingo is one strategy that we can take away from today's event. Let me take this one question from Linda, which talks about understanding that audience will play a part in this. Do you see more success with unstructured networking, like just opening the lounge with no direction or theme, or structured, like labeled tables, possibly with facilitators? And just to add one data point from Airmeet team, I was just yesterday looking at what kind of tables, what kind of events get the highest join rates, right? And I can say out front, the tables which have a topic, which have a name, they do much better. I won't tell how much better, but much better than a table number one, table number 10, right? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah,
How
I
can
for all of you guys, I told Vipin yesterday, I want that data. I want to know because I have personally felt the exact same way, but it's my feeling is anecdotal, right? I don't have platform data that says 60% of events that have labels on their tables. I want that data. So I totally agree, and in fact, that's exactly what I started. When I have the lounge capability, which I love, I go in and I predetermine. I do two things. I predetermine a core set of tables. And again, this is very topical and related to my industry. So it'll be like live streaming, Facebook ads, and so on. You guys, you'll have your own topics. But then the second thing that I do is I find in advance a table host. This isn't a speaker per se. This isn't somebody who's got to have prepared presentation material, but they're there
Mhm.
as a moderator. They're there to keep the conversation going from an ongoing perspective, but they're also there to have somebody already sitting at that table, because again, remember your audience perspective. Your attendee comes in, they see the lounge, they see the map of tables, 6, 8, 10, however many tables you already have predefined. They're looking at the topics, and they're looking at how many people are sitting at each table, and they're not going to want to be the first person to sit at a table. It happens in real life because this table talk concept is not new. We've been doing it for years. I mentioned that I met my current boss at an event in 2016. I met him at a
Right.
table. I knew one other person at this event of 3,000 people. I knew one other person. Her name was Peg Fitzpatrick. If you're
Mhm.
in the social media world, you know Peg. And I was literally following her like a puppy. And we went to lunch and we grabbed the lunch. And I'm just going wherever you want, Peg. And she looks across the big networking plaza in the San Diego Convention Center, and she saw a table with a flag for international people and one dude sitting at this table by himself. And so she said, let's go sit with him. And it was Emmerich. Now, she knew him, but I didn't. And that's what created that conversation. Now, Emmerich is a super brave, confident in himself French guy who had no trouble sitting at a table by himself. But other people aren't going to want to do that. So I
Right.
seed the tables with hosts. These are people who have a real passion and interest in the topic. Again, they're not expected to present any
Yeah.
material. I just ask them, hey, can you sit here for half an hour and just facilitate the conversation? And I often put their name on the
Mhm.
table, Facebook ads hosted by Amanda Robinson. And I may even offer it to some brands like Ecamm. I might say, hey, Ecamm, why don't you host the live video table? It's live video hosted by Ecamm. So it's a little
Mhm.
additional branding opportunity. And of course, they can sit there and answer questions. So I love tables for that perspective. And I love this new feature that you guys opened up, which allows, if the organizer wants, an individual to create their own
Great.
table.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you,
I'm
Mike,
an
for
introvert.
promoting that feature for us.
Yeah, I as an introvert, I'm not going to do that. But
Yeah.
I know from experience, there are speakers, there are influencers who will appreciate being able to have their own table, and they have
Yeah.
fans in the audience or new fans that just met them
Who
today
would love
with
to do
more
that, right?
questions.
Yes.
Yeah, and this actually saves you a lot of time because, again, my personal experience, I'd have people come to me and say, hey, Mike, after my session, can I have a table?
Yeah.
So I've got to field the question, I've got to think about it, and then assuming the answer is yes, I have to go make the table, which I did. Right, Jennifer Mendez had a beautiful session on community in our agency summit, and then she wanted to continue the conversation afterwards, which was great. But I had to go create that table as the event organizer and stop whatever else I was doing. Now she can do it on her own.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, we are hoping, some of these, what do you call, like extroverts, people who are really enthusiastic about meeting other people, that at the next blockchain event, I'm going to go and just create a table saying, okay, I'm investing in Bitcoin. Somebody will be, right? And then I'm hoping that other people would join my table, right? And that's going to be nice. Okay, I think we'll have to wrap up this session. But Mike, it's been a great conversation, such amazing insights, and I'm sure that the Airmeet community is totally going to use some of these tips and tricks. People, please give some loves and claps for Mike. It was great to have you, Mike. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And if you all have more questions for me, hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm always happy to answer questions. I, I was just saying, I'm an ambivert. I love talking about the things that I'm passionate about and that I know something about. Virtual events is one of those things. So this is
Yeah.
easy for me.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're going to end the session. Folks, you can join us back in the lounge. We'll be at the tables. And I hope more of my teammates are going to join. And all of you, just let's meet on tables and discuss ideas. Maybe the next big idea comes out of this event. All right. Bye bye. Thanks, everyone.